I thank the gentleman. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes for questions. Mr. Boucher, Mr. Alford really talked in terms of the same thing you were, the project labor agreements, the fact that our mandating that only union need apply in the trades often creates a situation in which many of the businesses that he represents are effectively locked out of the process. Now, you don't look like a black minority-owned business, so I'm not sure he was talking about you, but in a sense, isn't that beyond just a regulatory impediment? Isn't it simply the Federal Government agreeing and demanding that something costs more and then paying more? And my point to it is, it's a self-inflicted wound. Government may cost 15 or 20% more, but other than locking out Mr. Alford's people, locking you out of the process, is there any, since we're willing to pay for all this bureaucracy and waste and excess overhead, isn't it, in fact, not losing a job but creating just simply ineffective jobs?
Well, in my opinion, sir,
my tongue is in my cheek, you understand.
Please?
My tongue is in my cheek on that question.
We had a great example in the state of Ohio. The Ohio School for the Deaf and Blind bid a project out in two manners, one with a PLA and one without a PLA. The project that was bid without the PLA came in 22% lower and had 6 times as many bidders as a job with the PLA. That is clearly documented. It was public bid opening. The numbers were read. I guess taking my business hat off and being a taxpayer, I asked the question, why? Why would you exclude 85% of our construction market and our members and not allow them to bid on these projects? It just makes no sense to us that this goes on, because those 85% contractors are performing work on other projects that are not government related on a daily basis without PLAs and are very successful at it and are saving customers money.
Obviously, from this part of the dais, I agree, and particularly when I look at needing to crank more than 22% of the cost out of government if we're going to balance the budget. Let me go on to a line of questioning. As a former small businessman, I guess a current small businessman, still LLCs and LLPs, I have a question which hopefully each of you can relate. The regulatory cost overall for companies more than 500 employees is rated in this $1 trillion as about $7,635. But for companies under 500, it's estimated to be about $10,585 per employee. Now, when I look at that and I look at the figure of $1 trillion into a $17 trillion economy, it looks to me like between 5 and 10% is the cost of regulations overall. So I'm going to ask each of you a targeted question. Let's assume that we could get rid of just 2% of that 10% on the back of each of your businesses. What would happen if you could, each of you, whether it's avocados from California or your services on molded products and thermoset products or your contracting, what if you could shave 2 or 3% off, not the whole 10%, what happens if you shave 3% off of your cost of doing business? What does it do to your typical winning or not winning a bid? Mr. Boucher?
Well, I guess in our situation, whether it's 1%, 2%, whatever we can take off our overhead account is going to make us more competitive. An example, we had our General Superintendent retire in the middle of last year, and we did not replace him. We're doing the work with my Vice President, myself. We didn't have the funds, nor could we be competitive if we put that back online. Right now I have a girl that spends about 30 hours a week taking care of prevailing wage reports.
Okay, well, let me get to everyone because my time is expiring. And I'll start with Mr. Timmons and come back down to Mr. Frederick. For a national manufacturer competing globally, what does 2 or 3% do if they can lower the price of their overall product by that amount?
Well, Mr. Chairman, overall it is 18% more expensive to do business in the United States than it is in a country that is a developed economy. So any amount off of that 18% allows us to be more competitive. By the way, that 18% is derived from the cost of regulation, also energy and tort costs. Sure. It does not include labor.
Right. I realize it ripples through.
So every percentage decrease in the cost of doing business allows a manufacturer to reinvest money into its company. It allows it to expand. It allows it to create jobs, which is our ultimate goal.
Right. And I'm using the hypothetical number. You can use your own numbers.
I
but
understand.
Mr. Nassif, assuming that you get water, what does that do for avocados and other products competing against Mexico and the rest of the world?
Well, clearly, if we have the adequate water supply, we're going to be able to be more productive on the land. And the more you can produce per acre, the less water you use and the less fertilizers and insecticides and pesticides you use. In our industry, we're not price makers, we're price takers. So the retail buyers and the food service buyers tell us how much they're going to pay. Obviously, if we can cut a couple of percentage points, that helps us to be more competitive. But because we're in a global market, we're not competing against the other state necessarily or the farmer next door. We're competing against the world. And in the world, they don't have the same regulatory burdens we have. And therefore, if even at 2% we're cut, they can still look to another country like China or Mexico or anywhere in the southern hemisphere and find a lower price. So then we have to compete on quality and food safety.
Okay. Quickly, Mr. Alford.
Same question.
Just the same genre of, if we reduce this down to the portion that Mr. Cummings and I might be able to provide in regulatory relief, knowing you're not going to get all $10,000 per employee off, what do those pieces of $2,000 or $3,000 per employee, what does that do for the businesses you represent, and then for Mr. Frederick, and we'll have to wrap up.
It certainly makes it more competitive, makes them more competitive. They would win more contracts, and winning more contracts from that profit, they would invest back into the company to grow or add jobs.
Yes, Mr. Frederick.
I'll give you a specific. We're bidding right now on a water pump cover for Volkswagen. We don't sell it directly to Volkswagen. We sell it to a company called Bocar. Bocar is located in Mexico. That contract will be awarded on 1 or 2% on the price of that. And I think we're going to get it. I do, because we're very close. But as you burden, and that, by the way, in terms of jobs, that's 5 jobs, 5 full-time jobs to fulfill that contract. If we get it, 5 new jobs. We don't get it, Mexico.
Thank you.